Flashbacks. Past players, past legends.
Tonight we're privileged to have Tim Ginever on the line. Tim, 314 games for Port, 302 goals, 7-time Port's premiership player, Port Adelaide captain 94-97, Port best and fairest 94-97, South Australian Footy Hall of Fame in 2015. There is another premiership we will come back to in that as well, which Tim tries to hide about. So we will come back to that, and Dwayne Stewart messages him each year with the most significant achievement of his footy career. And also Port coach as well, Tim, but you weren't ever up for long service leave there, mate. Welcome aboard.
Right, so let's get the insults out the way. All right?
Thanks for joining us, mate. That's all we've got time for. We've done all your stats. That's all we've got time for. Mate, let's start, obviously, back with your junior days, obviously growing up down in Port Adelaide there.
Yeah, look, it was a bit different. I was one of 10 kids with 5 older brothers. So
Seventh child syndrome, correct. But I suppose the competition started in the backyard, like a lot of families would have in the 70s, and it was the best breeding ground, I suppose, you could get as far as footy, cricket, tennis, whatever we could play. We did, and my mum had a bit of a theory where we could invite any mate we wanted to in the backyard, because she said, well, look, if you're all in my backyard, at least I knew where mine were. And, can't argue with that.
So we always had a backyard full of sport going on, and it could be, like I said, any of those sports that were happening, and it could be all different age groups. And of course, being that little bit younger, it was you have to earn your spot. So, and there was no there was no compensation for age or size. But so that's probably where the first competitive competition would have happened in my life, and then it developed into playing for your school and for, well, I would say a local club, but it didn't really work out like that for me. It ended up, we were living in Mansfield Park, and my brother John, who was going to Woodville High at the time, who's 10 years older than me, his mate talked him into playing for Semaphore Park. So that was like donkeys away, but if it wasn't Dad in the combi van when he wasn't doing afternoon shift, we'd all get in the back of that with our mates, and off we go down Bower Road to Semaphore Park's Oval, then on Military Road back in those days. And then if it wasn't that somebody else would be picking us up and bringing all our mates, because we were probably half the teams were loaded up with Ginevers and their friends. So it was quite bizarre, and I love those days, because that was part of the Port Adelaide Junior Footy Leagues, and that's where I first started playing competitively.
And what isn't generally known is you're actually a Woodville junior, and you played in a Woodville 1978 mini league premiership side.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, well, so we were zoned to Woodville back then, and the mini league, of course, you have all the teams play, and then they got a representative side, and we played this huge carnival at Woodville Oval, and ended up playing Sturt in the grand final, and Todd Viney was captain of Sturt. And we ended up with our coaches of Ralph Sewer and Lindsay Heaven getting up and winning the grand final. And it was bloody fantastic.
What time did you get home with those two as coach?
Well, I think they might have celebrated and left us behind. But it was a terrific day. And I remember, I think it was Woodville's first ever premiership of any level or any level, and the Coca-Cola Mini Cup, as they called it. And it was just a fantastic day. And Greg Anderson actually played in the side as well.
Yeah, I am looking at that side as we speak. Yep. And, of course, coached by Ralph. Well, we're not sure. Is Ralph off the stage from the 80s, the 80s show we had a couple of years ago yet? Tim, is he still speaking?
He was still telling stories, wasn't he? I love that, though. When you get a bloke like Ralph and he's in the mood to tell stories, you just let him go.
Oh, he was... I reckon he would have just kept going all night if you hadn't stopped him. He was gold. So
he was fantastic, and I love getting guys like that to reminisce about those times, and that was a really good day.
Sportsman's Night's
right.
absolutely gold, really.
It was. He was incredible that day. So I'm not sure. He was certainly keener to be keep talking than Paul Truck Bassani was to draw the raffle. That's for sure.
Could not get Truck to do anything that day.
He was going to pull a hamstring running the other way, Truck.
Oh, God, that was funny.
Yes.
That was good value. Bloody good day.
So Mansfield Park and then Woodville High, Tim.
Yeah, so it was a bit unusual, being Mansfield Park. Not many kids went to Woodville High. They mainly went to what was originally Angle Park Tech, which then changed into the Parks Community Centre when they redeveloped that whole high school. And it was all of my mates, bar one, went there. And me and my other mate, we rode our bikes to Woodville every day because my elder brothers had gone there as well. So went up to Woodville High, which had an incredible history of sporting greats, and very strong in hockey it was, and also Australian rules footy with many a good name out of that. I think when the Advertiser did its recent
it was a
high school teams, I think we got third or something like that. So because there was some really good names in it. So yes, played footy at Woodville High, and even had your good self, Malcolm, umpire a couple of games. So
yeah, we will get to that.
They were good times. And then, like I said, I played in the Port Adelaide Junior Footy League as well at Semaphore Park at the time, which ended up becoming West Lakes, which then merged with St Michael's, which then became St Michael's Old Scholars, High Marsh, and West Lakes. So Smosh West Lakes now. And I actually remember when we swapped over from Military Road over to this new ground that they built, and that was I think the back end of 1978 for the start of the 79 season, and that's where the ground is today.
Let's not gloss over the fact that also you played in the 78 Sapsars estate side, which I have got the photo in front of me. I admit I am trying to pick a couple out there as well. So
yeah, I haven't got it in front of me, Malcolm, but here's some names that I can remember. Up the back left-hand corner, there's a tall guy.
Yes.
His name is Peter Sexton. He actually played in the 36ers championship in 1986.
Yep.
Yeah. So he ended up being a very good basketballer. And I ran into Pete just this year when I went to MC their Legends room, which Brett Maher and Scott Ninnis talk in, and they said, "Oh, Timmy, this is Pete." I said, "Pete Sexton." And he said, "Timmy, you remember?" I said, "Remember? Mate, we're under 12 champions together. How can I forget?" So, yeah, it was really good to catch up with him and have a good yarn about that trip. But, of course, Todd Viney
he's a fair
was the
bit
captain.
Taller than anyone else in that side, just quietly.
Yeah,
he's almost as tall as the coach.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And he, for that reason, he played in the ruck as well. But Todd Viney was the captain, and it was guys. It's quite a successful team when you look at it. I think there's Wayne Marnie, Darryl Borlace, Roger
Yes, I
Gurdon.
thought it was Daisy. Yep.
Roger Gurdon's in there. David Foote played a lot of good footy for Torrens. Who else is in there? Oh, there's a couple. Gary Argus played Sturt.
And Kilburn Motorcycle and Tattoo Club. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Kicked 5 in a state game against Victoria.
Correct, he did. Oh, geez, I'm just trying to remember some of the other lads that are in there.
Todd Viney in a mini league game kicked the casual 7 goals for Sturt in a mini league game.
Yep.
And got a standing ovation at Unley. And
he was a freak.
Wow.
He was amazing. He used to backspin. He'd grab the ball and then backspin pirouette out of packs, and the kids just didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know what was going on how to tackle him. He was like the Tassie Devil on the Bugs Bunny show. It was amazing, but the way he'd pull through, and he had so much power already. But it was quite an irony in that, and I was talking about this to some Sturt guys, where that was the last time I saw Todd. It was the under-12 championship. Yep. And we went, and ironically, I heard that the Sapsarza team's going to Albury Wodonga this year. And that's where we went to play the championship.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, we had a rest day, and I think it might have been a Saturday. And anyway, Todd's billet and my billet, because you remember the days of billeting where you just got shoved with a random family somewhere.
Certainly
Off
do.
you go, 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
See you later.
Nowadays,
I
God.
did that in Melbourne one year,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, we all did it.
We
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Hey, it's bizarre, isn't it? That you
Yes.
think about it these days.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't dare let it happen. But so we caught up and they said, "Oh, we're going to go and see this new movie in town. Do you want to come?" And Todd and I said, "Yeah, no worries." So anyway, we got in, got the popcorn and that sort of thing, and sat down. And I said, "Do you know this movie?" He said, "No, got no idea." And I'm not lying. The movie was Grease, 1978.
Oh, jeez.
Can you believe it? We
Cult
saw
classic.
Grease together for the first time ever. So it's quite a moment in our histories. But yeah, what happened was he was such a good tennis player
Yes.
because he was a state tennis player at the same time. He pursued tennis and off he went. And we never saw him again because, you expect to come across him in juniors or other state teams, and we just didn't see him. And, of course, he came back off the circuit when he was 19, I reckon, and he came back to play for Sturt.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we played him round 2, I reckon, Footy Park, 85, and I'm realising he's playing, and I'm pretty excited. Firstly, I've got to get the job done, got to win first.
Yep.
And we win, and then I'm beelining him to go and shake hands, and I didn't know whether he'd remember me, and he ran straight to me as well and beeline me. And I've got this photo, this black and white photo of me, him, and Greg Whittlesey coming off the ground, and me and him smiling, beaming at each other as we've just sort of shaken hands and reconnected. It's a great photo, one I absolutely love, and I probably should get a copy and send it to him. Yeah.
It's amazing how those childhood memories and childhood friends carry right through even to today.
Oh, Greg Whittlesey's one of the great blokes in footy as well.
Yep.
He's
one absolute ripper, that fella. He cleaned me up and picked me up and apologised.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about an under-12 Sapsaza that's stood the test of time.
Now, let's get to it, Tim. Your greatest achievement of your football career, the thing which comes first, the thing you hold dearly, celebrate each year. Of course, you played in a Nord under-15 competition premiership side. And don't you revel in being reminded of that? And I would like to congratulate Dwayne Stewart that he does message you.
And let me say, I'm a massive Northern supporter and I respect Port Adelaide immensely. And when I heard that, I said, Malcolm, you're pulling my leg, right?
Oh, no.
He goes, no, this is dead set true. Yeah. So we had to get you on, mate. We had to ask the question.
Oh, Pete,
and you played with Storm Boy.
Yes, I did, Greg Rowe. But Pete, every person in life has a sin on their soul, and this is mine.
Very good.
And I've tried all types of baptisms, you name it, to remove it, but it keeps coming back to haunt me.
Oh, he was pretty happy when I interviewed and when I found out about it because he wasn't exactly going to mention it when I interviewed him originally, and then I've gone, Tim, how about your Nord premierships? He's gone, oh Jesus, how'd you find that?
You know, I blame for that, Malcolm, for actually reigniting it. Is a bloke called Terry Barch. He played some footy at Norwood and coached a fair bit in amateur league and country leagues. And I was dealing with Terry Barch at because I was at the Little Heroes, and he was told transport, and they were big supporters at a massive golf day. And Terry and I got on like a house on fire, and of course loved our footy. And one day he said to me, "Hey, did you play at Norwood?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Don't bullshit me." He said, I've got a yearbook from 1980 that says the under-15s, congratulations, won the night premiership on blah, 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 blah. And here's the lineup. And he said, and there's a T. Ginever in it. I said, "I'm sorry, Terry, I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "That's you." I said, "Look, it is. It is." And he said, "How did that happen?" Of course, I told him the story, and he's gone, "This is unbelievable." Anyway, he let it run riot. I think he actually put it in a bloody, it must have been a Nord newsletter.
I can't remember how I found. It may have been with Stewie. I reckon it might have been having a chat with Dwayne Stewart, and Dwayne might have brought it up, I reckon.
Well,
I don't think it was Fanta, I admit that. No. I think it was Stewie.
Well, see, Fanta went over to the Bulldogs, and he was out of the state for a while, so I was happy about that because he always mentions it. So I was pretty happy, but it was an amazing set of circumstances, Pete, on how it happened. So my primary school teacher and footy coach at the time in '78, who sort of pushed me through to the under 12 Sapsaza. He just gave me a phone call a couple of years later and said, "Oh, Timmy, how you going? Da da da." I said, "Yeah, good mate." I'm thinking, "Mr. Robertson, what are you calling me for?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm coaching in this under 15 competition," and da da. I said, "Oh, that's good." Yeah. And I'm thinking, "Why is he ringing me?" Maybe he's coaching Woodville, you know. And he goes, and I'm actually coaching Norwood, and I'd love you to come out and play. I said, "I'm not coming out and play Norwood. No way." And he goes, "But yeah, it's under 15 competition." I said, "Well, you understand, I have to play for Woodville anyway." I said, "I'm in the zone." He said, "Woodville don't have a team." And I said, "Oh, ripper," because this is right at the beginning of under 15s being created.
Yep.
And I said, "Well, that's great news." I said, "I can go and play for Port Adelaide." And I'm thinking, "You ripper, the dream's coming true." And he goes, "Port don't have a team in this year either." I said, "Oh, God." I said, "All right, well, I don't care anyway. I'm not playing." And he started going. He said, "No, I really need you," and blah, blah, and all this. And then he just said one thing that clicked my ears up. And he goes, and we play on a Wednesday night at Theberton. And I went, "Nighttime?" And he goes, "Yeah, nighttime." Now, you got to remember, this is 1980.
Yeah.
The only night games that were played back then were the Ardith Cup.
Yeah. Yep.
And things like that. Like, night footy was a rarity.
Yes.
And I never forget, I was thinking, wow, because I used to go to Norwood and watch, Norwood play East Fremantle or something like that. And they'd wear that black stuff under their eyes and the white footies and all that. And I said to him, "So it's at night time?" And he said, "Yeah, it's at night time." And I said, "Can I wear that black stuff under my eyes?" And he said, "You can wear whatever you want, just play." And so I went out, and I'll never forget, I had to train Mondays with the under 17s, and that's when I sort of first ran into a bloke called Gary McIntosh. And I sat in the rooms, and I was always early because my teacher took me up there, and I'd sit there, and then I'd watch all the boys come in. And it's a really interesting dynamic compared to Port Adelaide, and where you had all the Blazers coming in from the colleges, and then you'd come all these scruffy kids coming in who come from like the Campbelltown Highs and Gillis Plains and all that. So you had this two distinct groups that was not, sort of bit foreign to me. And then of course blokes like, and I'll never forget, the first bloke that went straight up to me was a bloke called James Fantasia, who was just an absolute gentleman and still is, of course. And he just said, "Well, who are you, mate?" And shook my hand, and he just took me under his wing. And then there was a couple of other guys. Dwayne Stewart was excellent. David Payne. And when I trained with the 17s, because Gary was he was too good for 15, so he wasn't playing. He was up in the 17s, but those guys were just really nice. And I remember Mr. Fantasia was just, he'd go and watch every training session, you name it, and he was just such a gentleman.
Great man.
Lovely people. So, so we ended up playing, I think it was 5 minor round games we had to play and sort of like and see who was up the top. And then you had to play a semi and a final when we got through to the final. And I remember I was sort of playing half forward, if you like, because I was an underager. And we, I'll never forget, pulling on the Red Sox, the jumper.
Jeez, isn't that bringing the emotion out of you, Timmy G?
The bit that got me the most, the bit that really hurt me, was when I pulled on the Navy shorts and this bloody AGC badge was on the shorts.
Beautiful, wasn't it?
And that was just distinctive of Norwood. AGC were a sponsor for forevermore, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I just sat there and looked at these shorts and I thought, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And it was amazing. We got through, like I said, to the final.
Pete's actually got a pair out too.
Did you?
Yep, he's just got a pair out.
There you go. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Are they the zip up with the button up?
Yep, beautiful AGC logo we're looking at. I don't really think you'd fit into those these days, Pete.
No, unfortunately not. I might get one leg into them these days.
Well, I don't know what I might have chucked mine out. I think
come on.
I
reckon you've got
I didn't want any evidence. I didn't
want
it
framed on your wall.
But then I ended up, we played the final, and I remember we played, they were called East Torrens, and they were a mixed bag of sort of Torrens and North. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Jarman played. And Yeah, because I remember this kid, so he had exquisite skills and the like, and I was on the half forward, and we weren't travelling that well, and the coach said to me, like, Timmy, I want you to go in the middle, and I say to Dwayne and Fanner, I say, mate, we were down and you had to put a port bloke in the middle to bloody give me the victory.
You were a Woodville bloke at that stage.
Well, I was a Woodville bloke at that stage, and anyway, we bloody came back and we won the flag. It was amazing.
And because did the Saps, did playing Till Cup happen before you became a Port player, or where did that fit in going to Port in that reaction?
Yeah, that year was 1980, and I was 14 playing in the Port Adelaide Junior Footy League, and I'd you know how they have association medals.
Yep.
I'd won 3 in a row, including the 1981, and Jeff Potter, the famous Port Adelaide champion from the 60s, Jeff Potter's lad was playing at Summerfall Park, and he saw me playing, and he went and said to me one night, do you want to go play at the Oval? And I said, which Oval? And that's what they used to call Alberton in the old days. They used to call it the Oval. And he said, Alberton Oval. I said, oh, wow, would I? I said, but I'm bound to Woodville. And he said, look, leave it with me. And then he went, obviously, to Port and said, you've got to come see this kid. And he's bloody won all the medals and all this crap. And anyway, I was sitting at home one day and this guy knocked on the back door of all things. And I walked out and I said, oh, sorry, mate, Dad's at work. And he said, I'm not here to see Dad, I'm here to see you. It was Malcolm Maiden who coached Port's juniors for
long time.
Years and years. And he said, you know, would you like to come out to Alberton? And I said, oh, look, I'd love to. But I said, I'm a Woodville player. I'm bound to Woodville. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. We'll fix that. And if you're keen, we got pre-season starting next week. And I said, yes, please. So I went out as a 14-year-old to start training with the under-17s.
Let's be honest, with your junior record, it's quite staggering and, look, let's be honest, disappointing that Woodville were prepared to trade. Like, you and Greg Anderson should have been Woodville players. Now, that it does change things dramatically. Like, you know, Pavlich instead of McGregor, Tim English instead of Jordan Gallucci, etc., etc. Those sort of things change footy. And you and Greg Anderson and with Woodville would have been a distinct difference. And it's considering if you'd been a junior who hadn't done much, you could I understand it a little bit. But if I've got a kid who's winning every medal in my area, I ain't trading him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was quite staggering when you think about it. Exactly like you said with Greg as well. Like Greg was also an athletic champion.
Yes.
Like he was winning 200s and 400s at national championships and things like that. And you're going, so he's got athletic ability as well as this amazing footy ability. Like, it was a bit, it was a bit, what would you say? I think at the time, and I remember talking to my older brother, Nick, who was playing under 17s or 19s at the time. And I said to him, well, Nick, you know, Port want me to go out and all that. Should I, you know, just sort of say no and go to Woodville? He said, don't be so stupid. Yeah. He said, they'll ruin you. And he said, you go out. And it was, I think at the time they were just, you know, how you need good administration. And I think that their finger wasn't on the pulse, exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Because when I finished that tournament with Norwood and we won in 80, there was a bloke called Jock. He was our team manager. He had a beard.
Yeah, Jock O'Reilly.
Jock O'Reilly. Lovely bloke. Ripping bloke.
The late Jock O'Reilly.
Yeah, he was on to me like no tomorrow. Well, he got me and took me and my dad to meet Wally Miller.
Yeah.
So they were on it. And I said the same thing to them. I said, sorry, I'm bound to Woodville and all this sort of thing. And they said, well, look, we'd love you to come out. And, you know, don't worry about that side of it. We'll be able to fix that and all this sort of thing. And all I could think of was get me out of this room. And Wally you could tell like how good he was as a negotiator that day. You know, looking back in hindsight as an adult, not as a kid, I thought to myself, geez, this bloke has just about stitched us. And my dad, who had no idea about any sport or football or anything, was going, well, it sounds pretty good, son.
Wally was the master negotiator of getting the best deal for absolutely Nord Football Club every single time. Neville Roberts found that out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and I desperately want to get out of there in an awful hurry.
Come on, you haven't finished singing the Nord Club song from going top yet, Tim. Come on.
Can you imagine a parallel universe where McIntosh and Ginever are in the same team week in, week out?
I actually think the two, let's be honest, on that one, the two of you would have loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have.
Yeah.
I love that story where, look, and you probably got more, full credit to you, that you got more out of Macca where you interviewed him that day at Payneham than I've heard anyone get out of him.
Yeah,
and the story where he banged, whose heads together was it?
Malacallis. Tony Malacallis and me, yeah. And the most embarrassing moment of my career. Oh, my God, was that embarrassing.
And Macca did the Three Stooges impersonation. It was brilliant.
Did he what? It was bloody funny. And Macca would say nothing on the oval. But after that incident, we jogged away and I was just so bloody embarrassed. And he's come past and he said, "Hey, Timmy, that was a good one, wasn't it, eh? Three Stooges." And I said, victim of circumstance.
So is it safe to say that Nord taught you everything you know?
No, not at all. What it did do, you know what, I was very impressed at how well drilled they were. Yeah. And because I was training with the 17s, I was impressed with the way they did their drills and the discipline around where you had to kick the ball and where you had to lead. And there was all these things that I was sort of going, wow, I've never trained like this. And at that stage, I hadn't trained with a senior club. And it was sort of like, wow, this is quite impressive. Then when I went to Port Adelaide, we didn't train like Nord, and we didn't have those plays in place and the disciplines around where you kick the ball and how you kick the ball and who leads where and all that. Yeah. But what I felt at Port Adelaide was this incredible hard edge. Yeah. Yep. It was like, this is, that saying where they say, it's football's not about life and death. It's more serious than that. Yeah. That's how it felt at Albion.
And the amount of times, especially big games, finals, Port won because of your desperation. We look afterwards and look at the sides and go, God, we're a better side on paper than that. And then you'd remind yourself, Port were more desperate. Yep. They wanted it. You annihilated Nord in the final. I reckon Nord only kicked 2 or 3 goals. And it was just purely that. It was just crash, bash, get it forward, nothing scientific. Forward, next contest, and that's all it was.
The original Chaos Ball.
Oh.
Yeah, it was 88. It was the second semi-final, and I'll never forget, because it was a horrible blustery day, so didn't suit. It then becomes a game of exactly those factors that you're talking about, so it suited us, but I think you only kicked 2-5 for the day, and Rowan Smith came back into the side that day, and I think he kicked 3 in probably the worst conditions going around, and he basically cemented himself for the grand final that day. But it was such a exactly that game. It was all about, okay, it means more to us, and this is how we're going to play.
Now, I do want to go back now. So, Pete, the first ever time I met Tim I was umpiring Tim. It was a Tuesday afternoon at St. Clair, and it was pissing down with rain. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think who you were playing, what side you were playing. But anyway, there was a guy in the opposition called Vince Mayo. How he never played league football has me stuffed, Tim, because he was a gun. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there was a bit of push behind. And Greg Anderson that day was playing in Sandchews, and he was lairising, and he admits now that he was being a big-headed dickhead, that he'd come back from league footy, had to play for the school because he wasn't allowed to play for St. Michael's, etc. And so Vince Mayer, he pushed him a bit behind the play. There wasn't much in it, but I carried on as an umpire. There was, and I've gone yelled out, "Hit him again, they play Nord next week." And Tim burst out laughing and went, "Good on you, Malcolm. That's exactly what he needs." And that was really, I've got on with it. There's a house on fire with Tim ever since from that, where I reckon a few people you could answer back, who do you think you are as a Nord man? Well, you went, actually, he is being a dickhead. He's getting what he deserved.
And Vince Mayer could fight. He was a good little fighter. He went to Findon High and
Findon, that's right.
My now wife went to Findon High as well. She knew him very well. She said, "Oh yeah, cleaned up more than there though."
But just Greg was just a nice. Come on, young fella, pull your head in. Yep. Yeah, we know you can play, but don't be a clown. And And now, ironically, Tim is Danny Hanson, good mate of mine's brother-in-law, so I'll be at Hanson family shows with him now.
Yep.
Oh, Helen.
And with Helen, yeah. And Greg actually went one day, yep, Malcolm, you're right. I was a dickhead that day. So, and we moved on, so it's a bit of fun.
No, bloody good man.
And
He's
mate,
a good fella.
You played some Teal Cup in 82?
Yeah, so I was, I got invited out probably from, I had a reasonable sort of start to the season in 82 in the 17s, and they promoted me to 19s. So from that, I got in the squad of players that you recommend, and you get taken to go to Sunday morning trainings for the Teal Cup. And Alan Stewart was coach, and I thought to myself, this is great. I'll just try and impress this year and get myself into the team next year when I'm 17. And I kept training to impress, of course, and Alan kept keeping me in the squad when they were chopping it. And in the end, he said, he announced early, because the squad would normally get announced, sort of last minute. And the last Sunday morning training before the squad was going to be announced on the Tuesday or something, he just stopped training and just said, look, the way he has trained, he said, I'm taking him this year as one of the 3 underage players I'm taking to Brisbane. And I was like, wow, I didn't even have to wait for the moment to get anointed in the squad. And I thought, wow, I'm going. And it was such a bonus, because if you get 2 years at Teal Cup, the second year you're more relaxed about it, or more experienced about it. And this was incredible. So myself, Andrew Jarman and Greg Anderson were the underages, I think.
Yep.
And we went away to Brisbane.
A few names in that side: Michael O'Brien, Jars, as you said, Stephen Barrett, Peter Simmons for North Adelaide, Adelaide Uni Premiership coach,
David Payne,
Payne, David Kapler. Probably the greatest achievement you've got in that, Tim, is you somehow managed to get on the back row in the photo, which is quite ridiculous. I
don't know. It's probably the only time I've ever been on the back row.
Yes, I was thinking that.
You sure you're not standing on a couple of phone books, mate?
The photographers are full, I think.
So keep looking. Dwayne Russell.
Dwayne was captain.
Dale Lowby. Pete Brinkworth. So, there's a few in there.
Yeah, good little team, that one.
Of course, too, a guy, Jamie McPhee, Australian under-19 cricket captain.
Correct.
Yes, he could. Australian under-19 captain, and the side was Mark Taylor, Mark Waugh, and Steve Waugh, and Danny Buckingham and Ramshaw, and he was the best player of the lot of them.
Wow.
Jamie McPhee. So trivia
there. Good bloke too.
Yes,
good bloke. Jamie.
I was with him. He was over in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago.
And did
I reckon
Sorry, go on.
So I think Michael Murphy was in that team as well. Played at the Bays and Brisbane, and Michael Murphy.
Yeah.
And did I read right that you made the 82 All Australian Teal Cup team as well?
Yeah, I did. I remember I was on the bench for the first game, and Dwayne Russell came up to me, and I was just excited to be playing. And he just said, listen, you'll get a chance at some stage, make an impact. And I thought, yeah, right, I will. And I got on, I reckon, just before half time, and took a mark, ran around, kicked a goal, and then the second half, I think I ended up kicking 3 or 4 in the first game, and then played the second game and kicked another 3, and then I think in the final against Victoria, I kicked a couple again, and so it was like, no, you're in the All Australian, which was staggering. So I was sort of like
coached by the illustrious Ray Slug Jordan. That would have been interesting, Timmy G.
Yeah, he was a different character, old Slug. Don't worry about that. But there were some names in that. I mean, Paul Salmon was like there.
Yes, there he is.
Damien Burke and Paul Salmon were their ruckman, and they were about 6'7" or 8 then. They were huge.
Yeah, I'm looking at now. I can pick Sam. It's really hard to read the names underneath, but you can certainly pick Salmon and Burke, as you've said that.
Oh, they're huge players. So, they had quite a dominant team, the old Vics. But, it was a great experience for me coming away with an All-Australian in the first year. I'd never forget Darren Harris played for us. South Adelaide went to North Melbourne. And I'll never forget, we played that game. He played fullback, and he ended up playing a pretty good game. And as we were coming off the ground, a bloke walked out to him, shook his hand, and gave him a Carlton Guernsey. and because there was no draft back then, and so they were just used to entice you with Form 4s and the like. And we all went, wow, what's going on there? And our match day team manager was a guy called Ron Kinsman, who Ronnie came from Woodville and ended up doing lots of years at the Crows. And Ronnie ran out, seeing the incident, grabbed the jumper and threw it in the bloke's face and said, "You get your filthy Victorian hands off of him."
Good to hear.
It was classic. Gee, I think poor old Darren Ellis was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't have minded that."
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, looking at the side for the next year, Timmy G.
In the Teal Cup.
Yeah, with the Teal Cup side. And there is a guy there, I will say, that he's in the best 10 juniors I've ever seen. A Nord kid, Anthony Coles. He, as a junior, was extraordinary. He didn't go on with it. He kicked 10 against Port. Actually, it might have been 12 in an under-19s grand final. And you would have thought this guy was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. But of that front, just having a look now at the side, the front row, Andrew Bennett, Andrew Pays, Greg Anderson, Tim Ginever, Wayne Marnie, Robin Kidney. So there's a fair front row there.
Yeah. You're right too, Colsey. I sort of caught up with not long ago, and it was great to see him. I hadn't seen him for donkeys, but good bloke. He ended up playing back, I reckon, in that tournament. And he had to stand this kid that came up from Victoria for the final, who'd played league footy on the Saturday for St Kilda, and come up for the final on the Monday. Now his name was Tony Lockett, I think it was.
Oh,
Tony Lockett.
Yeah, heard that name. Yep, sorry. Just trying to be a smart ass trying to work out who it was,
Just a lazy Tony Lockett.
He was amazing. Yeah, it was, and Colsey had to stand him. Good luck, Ant. Good luck.
What was it like playing against Tony Lockett there in the Teal Cup?
Oh, you could tell he was a fierce, angry kid straight away. Like he was built, 17 years of age. Yeah. Thin waist and the big pick-handled shoulders, and he was just such a beast of a man and great hands, and just you thought, gee, no wonder why he's playing league footy already. He was just already built for it. So quite a character. But the runner came out to him and said, "Hey, Tony, Slug wants you to do this, that, and the other." And he just kept staring ahead. And he said, "Slug wants you to do this, that, and the other." He just kept staring ahead. He said, "Tony, you listening?" And he turned to the runner and he said, "You tell Slug to get fucked."
I tell you what, I reckon there were plenty of adults who wouldn't have done that to Slug, let alone a junior.
Oh, he was
Victorian cricketer as well. He was a lunatic. The cricket
classic.
Stories around about him,
correct.
Now, am I right in saying that you had a bit of an interaction with Tony Lockett in that Teal Cup?
Oh, there was a fair old blue in might have been the first quarter actually. So yeah, everybody was in it and all the rest of it, but I think I got thrown out of it pretty quickly. I wasn't that silly, mate. I wasn't that silly.
Fair enough.
Now, league debut, then after that, was it one of the night games originally?
Yeah, it was the old Escort Cup. Yeah. So we were playing, I think it was a Wednesday night, again, Thebarton Oval.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible evening, and it was going to rain, all night. And we were playing school footy, and of course I said, "Well, look, I'm not playing because I've got to play league footy, but I'm on the bench." And back in those days, you sat on the bench, you might get on, you might not. And so anyway, I was standing watching the game. We're playing at Finnan High again, ironically, but at Finnan this time. And we were down at 3/4 time, and the coach looked at me and said, "How about we drag your mate and you put his gear on and go on?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I played the last quarter for Woody High. Luckily got out of it unscathed. We won the game, packed up my gear, went home, got picked up and went to play league footy and thought, "Oh, you beauty, I'll just be sitting on the bench all night." And
was
so
Trevor Robertson coach? Was Trevor coach?
Trevor wasn't, not that night. No, he wasn't, but he did coach us, Trev. Yeah, good man.
Former state cricketer.
Correct, good keeper. And so we sit there in the box at Tebby and thought, got the rug on and you beauty. And no word of a lie, 5 minutes in, injury, Timmy, you're on. So I ended up playing just about the whole game, and I really enjoyed it because I was out there with league players and the like, and I ran past Daryl Schimmelbusch had a really good game, but I ran past him when he got a free kick, and I said, "Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer," and he went to handball it to me. And then he said, "Oh, you little bastard." And he started chasing me up. And then after the game finished, he come up, shook my hand, and he said, "Hey, that was clever. That was really clever." And like for a 17-year-old to do that to a senior player, like it's a bit cheeky, isn't it?
You've always been the smiling assassin, Timmy, that's for sure.
So then you establish yourself in the league side in 84 and go through and play in the grand final. Look, I know you're going to say you're Nord, man. You get giving me shit because Nord won and all that. But in my book, the 73 and 84 grand finals are the two great grand finals in SNFL history.
Yeah, I think from a spectator's point of view or an outsider's point of view, it's one of the great SNFL grand finals of all time. But for me personally, it was probably premature. That was only my 6th game of league footy.
Yep.
And I came in really late into the team. I think so we won the second semi, and I played a game earlier in the year, so there's one. So I played the last 3 minor round games and managed to kick, I reckon, 4 and 3 in the last 2 games. So sort of had my spot, if you like, as a sort of a, what would you say, forward pocket who gets about 5 minutes on the ball.
Yep.
And so the second semi, we played the Bays, and I play exactly that role, but I kick 2, and we play really well and we win. And we've had a great year. I then sat there nervously for a fortnight going, am I going to get a game? And I was sort of thinking, geez, I might be lucky to stay on the side. And then it was a bit of a surprise. We're staying with you. We got a couple of injuries, which I think threw things up, and they probably didn't want to make too many changes. And I played, but they changed just about everything, because you used to get a bit of a run on the ball, but Paul Belton was sort of number 1 rover, and you might get 5 minutes in the quarter. Because of, and you well and truly know this, Harvey comes into the team to tag Ash.
Yep.
So that takes out one midfielder, and that was Paul Belton. So Paul Belton was forced to a half-forward flank, like permanent. That forced me deeper as a forward pocket, if you like. And then Bomber, who would have been, say, the sentimental of the time or the ruck rover, he was sort of the loose midfielder, if you like. And then
Bradley as well.
And then Bradley was playing almost the exact same role.
Yep.
And it just changed the whole dynamic of everything. And then Barmy brilliantly puts Aish to full forward, and Max James ends up on the ball, who hasn't played a league game for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So it was it was funny. I always felt like we rearranged our chess pieces to match Norwood's, yet we've been the dominant team all year.
Yeah, that's fair point.
Yeah.
Mate. And you're a bit unlucky too. Lester Ross had a fair old game in the grand final.
Yep.
Lester Ross could seriously play as well.
Oh, he's a great player. But, look, I think basically the first quarter was all, a fast-paced blur for me. I think in hindsight, if and as players do today, you rotate off the bench. I think if you had that 15 or 20 minutes to get all that out of your system, go and have a 5-minute breather and then come back on in the second term, I think you probably would have settled down and had a good game.
Yeah.
But what happens in those days, because you're stuck in the forward pocket, well, the first one to come off is one of the forwards, isn't it? And I was the one that came off. I came off and I sat there until the 29-minute mark of the last quarter.
Yeah. I did remember you were on the pine a fair bit.
Yeah, and I remember coming, because I was almost in a blur. I was almost became almost like a dream sequence where you just weren't sure that you were there and it was happening, and it was such an intense game that, sort of what's going on, and when will I go back on, won't I? The shame of being on the bench, because it was shameful back then. If you were on the pine, it was completely shameful. And as an 18-year-old in your 6th game, not understanding any of that, you pretty much blame yourself for the loss. And it was just like, I remember the 29-minute mark, the phone ring, and they said fresh legs. And I thought, fresh legs at the 29-minute mark of the last quarter.
And it actually only went 29:40. So, geez,
yeah,
you had a fair bit of time to make an impact. Yeah,
I got on, ran over the other side, and actually hit Timmy Evans on the chest, and he has a shot and misses. I think.
that's right.
Yeah. So I know you blokes would know it better than me, but
now speaking of Timmy Evans, him and Barmy going toe to toe in the square at the beginning of the game, was that a shock?
Well, it was. I was then obviously still for the national anthem with Leicester, who's a very respectful man as well. And you could just hear this enormous roar of the crowd going off.
Yep.
And I sort of looked to my right and went, you're kidding me. They're actually having a fight. And of course, then everybody started to run down to it. And you sort of go down and you know, thinking, the national anthem's on. Like, where's the respect?
Yep.
And that game and that moment changed the way we line up for the national anthem
what I was just about
forevermore.
to say. It was the last time.
Now let's go into 85 and 86. And look, I think you show a fair bit of character. You had a dispute. Let's go through that in your words, Tim.
How do you mean, mate?
Well, with Russell and what you decided then doing the course and because I'm actually praising you for that.
Yeah, look,
that you're honest with yourself.
I was fiercely competitive, but built myself up into a game, into such a frenzy that you lost perspective. And as much as I had to be sort of kamikaze in my mind to get a kick, I was losing all perspective about, keeping your blinkers open and being more aware of what's around you and who's around you. And so I got to the point where I found out at one stage that if we lost a game, nobody would come near me after a game because I wouldn't talk for nearly a week. I wouldn't talk till the next Thursday night. And it's like, it's too long to actually recover.
Rowan Smith actually said to me they were quite worried about you at one stage, that you did take losing so hard, and they thought...
Too hard. Way too hard.
This kid's got a real problem. We need to get him out of this crap. Hey,
I think
it's important. Let's get back with the real world a bit.
I know the feeling, mate.
Yeah.
I
can't deny it.
Yep. But I think I would have, in these days, you probably would have got help a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where I didn't have a great pre-season in '86, and I was sort of in and out a bit, and I sort of felt like I hit this patch of form that I was going okay. And Russell had sort of been taking me off, and I went back to the twos, and I came back, and I felt like I was having this bit of a patch of form where I was going okay. And then this particular game, he took me off, I reckon, at the beginning of the third quarter. And I lost it because I felt like I was playing well. And I came to the boundary, and of course the coaches used to sit on the bench well and truly back then. And I grabbed the old mouth guard, and thank the Lord I didn't throw it. But I just fronted him and said, what was that for? And he just said, look, sit down, stop behaving like a school child. And I said, well, I'll do that when you stop coaching like one. And that was just, like, honestly.
Wow.
I always talk about attitude and having a great attitude, you can achieve anything. Well, having a bad attitude, you fall into the world of blame and excuses. Well, that's where I was. I was in the world of blame and excuses, and I sat there fuming, and I could tell that Russell wasn't happy with me. But again, you sat there, and then 5 minutes to go in the game, he said, warm up, you're going back on. And I said, no, I'm not going on. It's a waste of time. It's wet, cold. I'll do a hammy. I'm not doing it. So I refused to go on. Then I left the game straight away, and I drove around the streets for 2 hours, not what I was going to do. And it was a complete disaster. And I remember, long story short, mate of mine just said, well, go back and put your cap in hand and apologise to Russell and cop your lot and see if he doesn't sack you. And I was fearful that I'd be sacked from the club for that. And I thought probably at the time, it was probably warranted. So Russell, I went to Sunday morning, he grabbed me, took me for a walk, put his arm around me and said, mate, totally understand that you're fiercely competitive and you want to win and you want to do well and all the rest of it, but you just can't behave like that. You can't display like that, and you're dragging everyone else down. So about 6 weeks on the twos. So that's where I went.
And you did a course, Mind Powers.
I did. Straight at the end of that season, I went off and did this course with a Canadian guy who came over, and it was all about being able to use your brain to succeed in whatever it is you want to do. And it was really just about being able to talk to yourself positively, get yourself in a positive mindset, and then being able to influence others the same way. And never, ever blame anybody else for anything that happens to you. Just if it's happened, then learn how you control it and what you can't control. And it was such a revelation for me that it took me from being this really intense beast to sort of being more probably aware and unselfish
Balanced,
to help others, and then you in turn benefit from it. So I was very fortunate that happened, and that was a pretty significant turning point for me in my career.
And of course, then you had a reasonable year in '87 under Russell, but then Jack returning, that that helped you, and Jack's ability is to sell anything. The master salesman, to convince Wayne Marnie that he's an Adrian Settree and guys who were just the role players that they were bigger than Ben Hur and do the job for Port in the final. He was Jack in that regard, second to none.
Yeah, and I have to agree with it, because I think a lot of probably other coaches perhaps looked at our lineup and went, there's nothing really there to worry about. But what they didn't know was what Jack was instilling in us. And, I'd been told forever that I was too slow and, can't kick over a jam tin and can't jump. And all those things are true. But but the beauty of Jack was he used to say, Timmy, what's your strength? Your ability to get the ball.
Yeah.
Because he said to me when he first got there, he said, what are you doing? I said, I've been doing sprint training for 4 years. And I've been, and he said, yeah, we're going to stop that. And I said, but I'm not quick. And he said, Timmy, speed's up in your head.
Yeah.
Your alertness, if you're alert, you'll get to the ball before them. And you're never going to be quick. He said, so all you've probably got out of the last 4 years is a really nice action, but you're no quicker.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was like, no, we're going to just soar with your strengths.
Yeah.
And your ability, I'll get you fit as, he said, and then you get it and give it to the blokes who can run.
Can't argue with that.
It's amazing how coaches can get you to run through brick walls, and Jack was certainly one of those that certainly instilled in a lot of you guys that you could do exactly that.
Well, it did happen happen, the game for Anthony Williams. Like, talk about sliding doors, and I'm not being rude, but it virtually discovered George Fiacci that day as well, that he ended up playing in a back pocket, and where he'd previously been the rover, the fill-in rover, up and down the twos. Yep.
Correct.
Good honest battler, and he discovered that day, and that started off the Batman and Robin, and you guys, Nord should have been well up at halftime. The amount of play Nord had in that first half, you guys ran all over it, and then to drive in Condo back to the Williams house.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the great shows of unity and emotion, and
it transcends football, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just
it did.
It just showed
and
everything.
I loved seeing Keith Thomas's view on it when he was on that little story that we did. He said that he described when Jim Teal died. He said we didn't handle it well.
No, we didn't.
He said we were over emotional, and he said we were standing in the lineup crying, and he said we just didn't handle it well. He said somehow Port Adelaide just knew that it meant more, and they were able to hold their composure when it mattered, and you can't blame anybody for anything. You just don't know how you're going to respond on those days.
Barmy admits that we handled that badly in '86 as well. Spoke about it at length, and out of that, it was interesting where you said some of the younger guys, they knew from looking at the senior guys, because it was Nord. It was before the elimination final against Woodville. Went over in front of the scoreboard and thing. And the younger guys who hadn't been as close to Jim were looking at the older guys going, we're no chance.
Yeah.
We're Port were the other way. And it was just, we've got to win this for the Williams family. And Barmy admits that he actually didn't want to make the focus Jim, but in the end he probably should have.
Yep.
It was a tough day, but one that we sort of, it's etched in the memory forever.
And so you go through then, and then you end up being part of the golden era with Port, the 3 flags through 88 to 90, you being a huge part of it. And that. And how about, let's go back. Yeah, I know you take the piss out of yourself, not quick, blah, 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 but you got the ball. You had to be disappointed, really, though, that you're one of the few people to be dual All-Australian at Teal Cup level, not get looked at by an AFL club, Tim.
Yeah, look, I again, philosophically look back on it and go, yeah, if you were in today's modern draft system, there's every chance you're picked up.
Oh, there's no way in the world. You're a dual Australian. You ain't not getting drafted. Yeah.
So you'd be in some system somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think back then there was this. I was pretty light too. When I started, I was sort of around that 64 kilo mark, so I certainly wasn't carrying a lot of weight. But I think
right at more
the thing about it at the time, they look when the Vicks looked at South Australia, WA, they were either looking for key position players that they didn't have, or they'd go for these really quick guys that they had these mudlarks.
Yeah, that's true.
They went, these guys are tough, but we need a quicker outside sort of player, or faster sort of people. And we had a lot of really good midfielders who were quite tough. So in that era I came through, we were producing the likes of, McGuinness, Platten, Nailey, God almighty. The small brigade were outstanding players, and they had all the tricks and all the things that I didn't have. So for me, the one ability I had was to find the footy, and it was sort of probably something that they thought, well, we got a lot of those. We probably don't need them. Right,
a funny moment, Tim. Go through it. The famous 1992 at the brewery.
Yeah. I'll make this my last one. They're calling me for dinner. But you know what's sad, Malcolm? Driving up Port Road, and the bloody chimney's not there. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
God almighty, it's sad. But they were I always say one of the great traditions of Sandford footy, and we've had it for a long time, is the chimney and the Tuesday. And we made it our whole routine. Greg Phillips would roll it out and say, this is what we're doing this day, this is what we're doing the next day. And you top it off with the chimney on Tuesday. We'd go fishing or crabbing on the Wednesday. It was just such a great week, and you'd always look forward to it. And of course, that year 92 was Greg's only as captain.
Yep.
And we got up on the stage and did all the things. And then as we're coming down, Greg says, hey, boys, how about we go up, have a photo? And I said, photo? For me? Yeah, no worries. And of course, back then you had all the television stations, you had all the papers, and when I do my stand-up gig, I say, I said, back then there was the advertiser in the morning and the newspaper in the afternoon, and I said you'd have the Messenger on the Thursday night, and I said, and they were all there. I said, along with Football Times magazine and Hustler magazine, I said they were all there. And people like you blokes that laugh. I go, what are you laughing at? Do you have a copy of that? And then we got up the top to the roof, and I thought we were just going to walk over to the chimney, stand there, the four of us, and it was Greg Phillips, Mark Williams, Paul Northeast, and myself, and we just stood there and had this photo taken. And then they said, go up the ladder a bit. Well, Greg took off. He just went. And Choco stopped us and said, hang on. We've got a typical Choco. Got to get you in shirt order, because some of us had a black shirt and others had a white. So Greg had a white one on. So he said, Norther, you go next. You got a black. I'll go third because I got a white. And Timmy, you're last because you got black. I said, right, done. So we're black, white, black, white. So we get to the ladder, and I did not climb a rung. I just turned around and had a photo. And then they said, can you go up a bit further? Well, Greg took off. Norther followed. And then Mark goes, and then I go. And before I know it, I'm halfway up the ladder, thinking to myself, oh, shit, this is ridiculous. I'm shit scared of heights. And the only reason I did it was because I thought I was going to be front page of the paper. So off we go. This is how obsessed I am with being noticed. So up they go. It comes from a big family and you're number 7. So up they go, and Greg firing up, and I said, Greg, how far we go, mate? He said, all the way, Timmy, all the way, mate, just like we did on Saturday. We're the champions. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. And then Paul Northeast is next. He's not saying a word, and I'm thinking, oh, this is bad because he's a psycho. And then Choco, and he will not shut up talking. He's going, oh, my God, Timmy, this is incredible. This is a brand new fear. Don't look down, Timmy, for God's sake. Oh, look at this. I said, shut up, Choco. Let's just get to the top. So we get up there and Greg, he fires around and then Norla goes and he's not too steady on the feet. And then Choco goes and he's bloody chatting away, blah, 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 blah. And then I get up and I am absolutely gone. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where in your guts you've completely lost your balance and my legs are wobbling. And so I've crouched down.
Yeah, you are. You're holding it far more than anyone else, Timmy G.
And I can hear this little ant down the bottom say, stand up, stand up. So as I stood up and for a proper upright photo, I didn't realise, but it's a fair income chimney. And the wind changed direction and the heat off of the chimney. I felt like it burnt my head, and I thought I was like Michael Jackson and the Pepsi ad. My hair was on fire. Well, I dived for the rail, grabbed what I thought was the rail, which was the gate. I went flying out on the gate, and Mark Williams grabbed my arm and pulled me back in and said, "Hang on, mate, we haven't finished the photo." So they went click, 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 and we got down off of the ladder. I couldn't believe it. And I got to the thing, and then there's a security guard there. And he had his arms folded and he was all smug and he said, "That won't happen again next year." I said, "You're fucking telling me it won't. It'll never happen again ever." And it never did.
Mate, we know you've got to head off. Is there any chance we might be able to get you for part 2 next week?
Or in another
time, because we've got a ton of stuff we still want to get through, mate.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. That'd be great. Yeah,
we'll do it 2 parts, and we'll steer you up because you also, let's not forget, he did meet his wife at Heaven nightclub. So there's plenty more to come.
We won't add that one to the teaser just yet, but we'll talk about it next time or next week.
All right, boys. I'll catch you then.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and we'll touch base and see when we can fit you next week.
Beautiful. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Timmy G.